Hello everyone, welcome back to Major Hi-Fi. I'm Luke. Today we're going to be talking about Shanling's ME500 IEMs. And yeah, let's get into it. These run for $269, so they're kind of at a middle price point. And I don't have a ton of experience with this company, I'm not gonna lie. I have heard a couple of their IEMs, but not in depth. I've not spent a lot of time with any of them. This was the first one I've really dug into. So I was quite curious to see how it would sound, how it would perform and whatnot. And let's start out by opening up the box per usual. So first of all, we get this nice leather case, and inside of here are the IEMs. Take these out. And then we also get this MMCX cable with a 3.5mm termination. We also get this cleaning brush. And then we get a bunch of ear tips. We have 3 sets of vocal ear tips, 3 sets of bass ear tips, 3 sets of Soundstage ear tips, 3 sets of balanced ear tips, and 2 sets of memory foam ear tips. So yeah, let's take a look at how these look and how they fit. So looks-wise, they have this nice shiny brass shell. It's very futuristic looking, very reflective. I've seen this type of shell on some other IEMs before. It's definitely a very durable, sturdy build, and it is very luxurious looking, so I like that. Fit-wise, these were a little bit finicky to get in the right place in my ears. Once I did, they were fine in terms of comfort. They settled in well, but they definitely take a little bit more sort of moving around, at least for my ear shape, to get them where I wanted to. So maybe a little bit of fine tuning could be done on the fit of these, but overall it was fine. It met expectations for the most part. So yeah, the fit was good enough. I think it could be perfected in future models or other IEMs that they make, but it did the trick at the end of the day. These contain dual magnet 10mm dynamic drivers and a Knowles dual balanced armature driver. So they're a hybrid IEM, and the magnetic driver, according to Shanling, has magnetic flux density exceeding 1 Tesla thanks to dual magnetic construction. Do with that information what you will. The cable for these is 1.3 meters, pretty standard length. We've got 18 conductors per wire. Like I said before, MMCX connectors, 3.5mm termination, and these have a frequency response of 20 hertz to 40 kilohertz and an impedance of 18 ohms. All right, so there's your tech specs and unboxing, but how do these sound? It's a great question. Let's talk about it. A lot to say, lots of thoughts. So let's start off with the Soundstage. These have a pretty good Soundstage. They definitely give you a pretty impressive sense of width and room. Definitely a pretty good, very good Soundstage for the price, in my opinion. I was listening to a lot of songs by Kimbra. You should check her out if you haven't before. She's like a really great artist and producer. And she produces really busy songs, and I always like to test out sound separation on her tracks because there's a lot to separate. These rose to the challenge for the most part. They separated like the percussion, for example, on a lot of tracks very well from the rest of things, and they gave the vocals a lot of room to breathe. Reverb felt very, very well conveyed. They get a little bit overwhelmed sometimes by really busy tracks. I mean, these were definitely on the extreme level of busy. But, so a little bit more blend there, not to the unpleasant point, but maybe not the most intensely separated IEM. But on more, not minimal, but maybe by comparison, minimal productions, they're definitely totally fine in terms of sound separation and imaging. And just overall, a pretty successful soundstage. And they definitely give you that sort of nice, expansive, wide feel where you get those really satisfying kind of hits and plucks and whatnot in, your ears, and feel a good sense of space and performance. So yeah, good soundstage, especially for the price. These definitely perform, I'd say, above the price point in terms of imaging and soundstage and whatnot. In terms of low end, the ME500 I would say have a pretty standard low end response. It's not significantly boosted or cut, it's pretty neutral. It's very attack heavy, very much of the punch going on. Not a lot of sub frequency. There's like a thin layer of the sort of sub going on, but it's very subtle. So if you're looking for sub heavy, not the place to go. But overall, a pretty, par for the course standard bass response. Gives you like the general gist of whatever kick drum or bass or whatever's going on down there, but isn't gonna beef it up really, but also isn't gonna knock it down a ton of notches. So yeah, if you want that balanced bass sound without much extra flair, but you know, a nice clean punch and whatnot, these could be great for that. Definitely not for a bass lover, but probably also not for a bass hater, if such a thing exists. I'm sure they do. So yeah, bass response, standard, neutral, not the standout point of these IEMs for me, but you know, sort of like it worked, got the job done, felt like it was, you know, not offensive in any way, I guess. Like it felt fine, but not what, like my main takeaway from these was not their low end response, it's everything after that. Hey guys, Luke here. Just wanted to pop in and say that if you're enjoying this video, it would be great if you could subscribe and hit the bell to get notified when we make new content, and hit the like button and leave us a comment if you have any suggestions or questions or anything like that. I would love to talk to you guys more. We would really love some help growing the channel, and you know, just want to make sure that we're reaching our audience and whatnot. So yeah, any support is greatly appreciated, and let's get back to the review. All right, so the mid-range on these is definitely boosted and accentuated, and it adds a lot of presence and forwardness as one would expect with a boosted mid-range. Especially with vocals, we're gonna get a lot of extra clarity and crispness from that high mid area. And it really just helps kind of accentuate the core of a song, which is what the mid-range is. And when we get a good, well done mid-range boost that isn't creating a lot of resonance or metallic, you know, timbre, that's really great, and these do a good job of that. I listened to a lot of the new Avalanches, newish album from the Avalanches called We Will Always Love You. Great album, very eclectic. Always love to use eclectic music, you know, that's like sampling from different eras and different styles and whatnot. Really throws any IEM or headphone for a loop in terms of versatility. And these did a really great job of taking all the different like drum timbres and percussion and string plucks and really you know, sort of beefing up those nice sort of saturated areas and adding maybe a little bit of extra saturation too. So a nice sense of pop and a lot of that extra satisfying ear candy definitely going on with these in the mid-range. And then the low mid-range is very purified, a bit neutral, which is not uncommon in a IEM where there's a boosted high mid-range. They kind of let the low mid take a little bit of a back seat to it, which is fine. It prevents things from feeling congested and stuffy. If you are mid-sensitive, these could feel a little bit harsh. I'm very mid-sensitive. I wasn't offended by the mid-range on these, but yeah, maybe not for the most sensitive ears. But yeah, so unless you're going to really high volumes though, I think that the mid-range should be fine. Even for those who are more mid-sensitive, I found it was just very satisfying and pleasant. All right, so the high end on the ME500 is definitely pretty modulated in my opinion. So there are some pretty distinct cuts and boosts going on. There are big pockets of brightness and some pockets of darkness. So the kind of low highs are definitely boosted a lot, which adds to a lot of crispness. Those absolutely shiniest highs are boosted, but like I said, there are these pockets of cuts. So it's definitely kind of a segmented tuning of the high end, if that makes sense, where it feels bright, but it's not the full spectrum of the high end. You're just getting certain areas of brightness, and you're probably not gonna get the most intensely kind of like silky smooth high end out of these in my opinion. That tends to come from a high end that is cutting actually a lot of those lower high frequencies, you know, from like the 8K down area, and is boosting the kind of 8K up area. These are kind of boosting and cutting all over the place. So it's maybe not that super purified sound. It's very smooth, and it does sound clean, but I wouldn't call it like that sort of silky, shiny sound. It's a bit more, like I said, with the mid-range, a little bit saturated and has a lot of crispness to it as opposed to that really intense fluidity. So if you kind of want that wispy, airy, you know, very purified sound, these might not be the perfect place. They go more for that kind of warmer, slightly saturated high end that definitely has a bit of a harder edge to it. So for the most part, I found that that worked well. I will say it at times felt a little bit sibilant in certain areas. It was boosting those kind of S frequencies a little bit too much at times, but once again, this is only a problem really at higher volumes with certain songs. It was not an all-around issue, but I did notice it. those are my thoughts on the ME500. Overall, this is a really, really good IEM for the price, and I think that it is really solid sound. A lot of people will like it. I hope I've done a good enough job of describing the sound signature for you to know if it's right for you or not. If I didn't, leave me a comment, ask me some questions. I'd be happy to answer, or post in the Major Hi-Fi forum. We can talk about it some more. I will also link to Major Hi-Fi's IEM ranking tool, and you can compare this to different IEMs from different companies or from Shanling or whatever you want to, and see if it's a match. And yeah, I'll also link to my written article on Major Hi-Fi per usual. And that is all I have for you today. So I will be back very soon with some more reviews and videos, and until next time, happy listening.